are so excited to be back behind the microphone for our latest episode of the Big Bid Theory, powered by Bid Prime and Beacon Bid. I'll get right to it. Ahead will be our guest, Mr. Kirk Buffington, is going to stop by. That's correct. Kirk Buffington joins us on this episode, known as a respected, and I know many of you in and around the purchasing world and elsewhere, you're familiar with Kirk. Well, I formally met Kirk while over in Louisville at Forum back the end of August, introduced by our shared friend, Dave Nash. More on Dave later. And Kirk is one of those people who immediately strikes you as a caring, kind, sharp person. And again, those of you who know Kirk know exactly what I'm saying. Truly one of the very most respected leaders in the procurement profession. We're ecstatic to have Kirk with us a tad later in the episode. He's going to share on a variety of topics. This is Bill Culhane, host of the show. You will also recall on the most recent episode, we had Stephen Hetzel and Josh Schwartzbeck from Beacon Bid. They shared their recap of NIGP Forum, some very cool new technology, among other topics. Well, Kirk, he's going to give his takeaways from Forum. He's been to a few of them, and we'll talk about leadership in local and state organizations, NIGP. Kirk knows a thing or two about careers in procurement, so stick around if you're considering a new or different position, career. For that matter, I just said a position within your current organization. Also, we're now going to go very public about it, beginning with next season, meaning season 10, and we are so proud and excited to make this announcement. The Big Bid Theory will be presenting the David and Beverly Nash Leadership Award. Kirk knows David very well, knows Beverly, and he'll be sharing his thoughts on David, Beverly, their contributions to so many. By the way, yes, I'm talking to you, our friends. We will ask you to actually participate in the award process. Stay tuned. We'll have more details on that in the coming months. Before we wrap up season 9, we will have everything ironed out. We will have all of the details, all of the specifics on that. And trust me, you don't want to miss our visit with Kirk Buffington. Speaking of miss, we've missed Rick. Rick Jennings, our producer, hey, Rick, is across the way. How about this? Rick, we received a question from a listener, longtime listener, actually. I don't know if I'm allowed to name names, so I'm not going to name names. And the question is, Rick, some of the crazy bids Rick presents seems like they have to be made up. So, Rick, are they made up? We know the answer to that. And this email, let's see, how do you find them? Is it difficult to find them?
That's a good question. They are definitely real. It takes, it would be hard to say how long it takes to find each one. Some of them I find in a few minutes, and some of them it takes me much longer than I care to really admit on the air. So it really kind of depends. I mean, I'm using Bid Prime system to cross-reference, maybe certain industries and find some trigger words that don't really fit in a particular industry, which is how we find some of those oddities sometimes. Sometimes I have some friends help me out with it, including yourself, Bill, but the ultimate answer is that these bids are definitely real and open for response. And that's why we tell our listeners that these are crazy bids that you can actually win.
Rick, speaking of crazy bids, what's ahead later in the episode?
Bill, I found one that I think you and I are both going to take a lot of delight in, and hopefully we see more of these in the future. So stay tuned.
All right, Rick, as we sit here in the studio, I can say that that's another goodie. After these messages, our visit with Kirk Buffington right around the corner.
The Big Bid Theory is powered by Bid Prime and Beacon. Well over a decade plus in business, Bid Prime is the premier technology in the industry. Real-time bid notifications, supporting documents, doc search, robust data tools, and more. All backed by unmatched personalized customer support. For a free, no-obligation trial, go to bidprime.com. Are you looking to get more bidders and write better RFPs more quickly? Beacon helps municipalities overcome challenges in the process and increase supplier participation. Agencies are using Beacon to publish and distribute solicitations, along with communicating updates to plan holders. eBid allows bidders to easily submit responses and agencies to collect them for evaluation. Also, Beacon is the place for access to the RFP archive, a massive searchable database of previously published RFPs to more quickly write better RFPs. To learn more, visit beaconbid.com.
As I just mentioned, over on the audio edition of the Big Bid Theory, Kirk Buffington is our guest. And Kirk, thank you so much. We appreciate you stopping by the show today.
Well, thank you, Bill. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to talking with you.
Very good. And I just to take everybody behind the curtain a little bit here, I warned Kirk that I'm going to go through his biography here a little bit. And because Kirk has had such a distinguished career, there is a little bit of room to cover here. So if you'll just bear with me, Kirk, we'll cover your background. Kirk comes to us from Lighthouse Point, Florida, is currently a consultant in government procurement and contracting. And incidentally, for a more complete bio on Kirk, you can go to the description of the episode. Kirk has over 30 years of experience in supply chain management and finance administration. He's the former director of finance and procurement at the gorgeous city of Fort Lauderdale. I love Fort Lauderdale, Miami, that part of the Sunshine State. As many of you watching and listening know and have benefited, Kirk is a certified NIGP instructor and served as the president of NIGP in 2008 through 2009. We're going to be talking a lot about leadership on this particular episode, this conversation. Well, you talk about leadership. Kirk has served as the Southeast Florida chapter vice president and was the president for 2 years. More on FAPPO in a few moments. Some of you may recall we were at FAPPO this past May and loved our time there. But Kirk has held numerous leadership positions within the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials, to include serving as its president back in 2001 at NIGP Forum in Louisville. What was that? A couple of months ago, Kirk was honored with the Albert H. Hall Memorial Award. Tremendous recognition. Congratulations on that, Kirk. And very recently, I'm going to sneak this in. Very recently, Kirk graduated from the University of Cincinnati, go Bearcats, Law School, with a master's degree in legal studies. So, Kirk, again, we appreciate you sharing some time with our audience today.
Thank you, Bill. And it's great to be here, and I look forward to sharing some things with those listening.
Awesome. So, Kirk, let's start here before we get to the matters at hand. I literally just mentioned that you got yet another master's degree. And so when it comes to discussing things like ongoing education, continuing education, what motivated you to take those steps to pursue and earn yet another master's degree?
Well, I think it was a couple of things, Bill. I had retired. I retired from Fort Lauderdale in June of 2019. And although I intended to continue to teach with NIGP, which I absolutely love to do. I mean, I love sharing my experience and my expertise through the teaching. And I started to do a little bit of consulting, but I'm not a guy who plays golf. I'm not a guy who plays tennis. I do some different things for personal performance, physical fitness, but I needed to keep my mind active. More than anything else, I need to keep my mind active. And I've always been interested in the law. Anyone who knows me knows that for years I've been doing case law presentations at both FAPPO and NIGP. I advise, I give advice to those who reach out to me about case law. So I've always been interested in the law. Almost thought about enrolling in law school at FIU, which is Florida International University. But full-time legal student and full-time worker just wasn't going to work. So I found this program. I was looking at different master's programs, and I found the one at University of Cincinnati, very business-oriented. And it really would work well in what I was continuing to do in my consulting, which was improve business practices and improve business processes through contracting and negotiations and risk management. So I just needed something more to keep me going, if you will. And I'm so glad I did. It was a great program.
Well, again, congratulations on that. And I do know that your clients, your friends, the people who know you will benefit from the efforts that you put into it to achieve that.
Thank you.
You bet. So roll up our sleeves here, Kirk, and talk about some of the topics that you and I had shared over the past couple of weeks or so. As many of our listeners, watchers, viewers, audience know, Stephen Hetzel and Josh Schwartzbeck from Beacon Bid visited the show on the previous episode and talked about their impressions, their thoughts coming out of NIGP Forum 2023 there in beautiful Louisville, Kentucky. Another tremendous event by Rick Grimm and his team. It was fabulous. But on that note, Kirk, if you would share some of your takeaways, some of the good, the positive that you were able to bring back from the state of Kentucky.
Sure. Well, thank you. A couple of things really stood out to me. First and foremost was the ease of registration. I mean, literally, you could walk up to the registration counter, type your name into one of the pads that was sitting there, and boom, your label printed out, your attendance, whatever you were eligible to do or able to do while you're at the conference. So I found the ease of registration to really be a takeaway. Now, I can't count the total number of forums that I have been to. My first forum was 1997 in Fort Lauderdale, as a matter of fact. And I had just gone to work in Fort Lauderdale in August of 96. So my boss, one of the first tasks he gave me was, forum's coming, you're going to be on the steering committee. So from August until the following July, August, I got very involved in NIGP because of them coming to Fort Lauderdale. And I think that's what kind of started my whole love affair with NIGP. Another thing that really stood out to me was the ease of getting to the special event. Now, we have tried, and I was, at one point when I was serving on the board before I became president, I was chair of the forum committee, back when we had a forum committee. And that committee was responsible for vetting and designating and developing future forum sites. So little education there on what needs to go into a forum. Getting people to the special event has always been a challenge if it is off site. The buses, the walking, we always have forum in August, and almost invariably wherever we are, it is hot. And people don't like to walk more than a block or two, quite frankly. And then if you try to bus everybody, that becomes another whole nightmare in itself. So I was really happy when I saw that, this year's special event was there right at the convention center. Literally everybody, I don't think anybody had to walk more than a block. And if you were staying at the Marriott, you were right there across the street. I just thought that was great. Some other takeaways was the space that was available. I mean, the place was huge. It's, I think, one of the largest convention conference centers in the United States. Brand new. The technology was great. So I was really impressed with those things. The trade show, I've been to every trade show since probably 1997. And it just gets better, I think. And what really stood out to me this year was the number of software companies that are still in business in the government procurement sector. It just seems to me that at some point there's going to be some mergers, some acquisitions, some shrinking. But I mean, it just has really ramped up. And that's great because agencies have a greater variety of what they can use and buy to automate their procurement function. Not everybody can buy a tier 1 Oracle software system. So having these other options available to them, I think is great. And you learn so much at the trade show. So overall, great event.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. And something we've talked about is, the logistics were flawless, just so well put together. A lot of forethought obviously went into the planning. of the event. And to your point about the software companies, the technology companies involved, I actually was fortunate enough to be a part of the technology panel there at Forum.
Great.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was the moderator for the technology portion schedule, and it was such a tremendous, that part of it was so well put together, and everybody there in attendance was engaged in the subject matter. And of course, our show is powered by Bid Prime and Beacon Bid,
right.
two software companies involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, two software companies involved in that landscape. So something else that occurred there in Louisville, and we were so proud to do this. It was something that we at the show, the Big Bid Theory, have been thinking about since you talk about staying power, since we launched the show 9 years ago. We had talked about, we need to recognize people, and not necessarily people who guest on our show, even though I'm on record, everybody knows how much I appreciate the folks who come by the show, such as yourself, Kirk. But we said we need to come up with some way to recognize people, whether it be in industry, government purchasing, procurement, whatever the case may be. And so I met Dave Nash. We talk about NIGP Forum. I met Dave in Boston. This was my second NIGP Forum. I know it pales in comparison. But I met Dave in Boston. And before going to the event, I had all of the typical questions. What's it going to be like? Am I going to get anything out of this? How will we be received as kind of the new kids on the block? And I don't know what stars, what was looking down upon me. But Dave Nash was almost literally the first person I met in Boston. And Dave, as we all know, everybody watching, listening, Kirk, I know we'll talk more about Dave in a second, but Dave just has that way about him that he brings you in and you're instantly a part of the team. And Dave has, of course, guested on this show. And anyway, so the production team here, myself, it wasn't too long ago, we said, okay, we're going to have a leadership award. Who are we going to name the leadership award after? And of course, Dave Nash, his name instantly comes to mind. And so while in Louisville, I'm sorry, I don't want to ramble, but while in Louisville, we invited Dave and Beverly to a social event we were hosting there in Louisville down 4th Street Live. And that's where we made the announcement that starting with next season on an annual basis, we are going to award the Dave and Beverly Nash Leadership Award. And Beverly, I know Dave would be the first to say it. Beverly is a big part of what he's doing and what he has done. So Kirk, if you could just, kind of fill in, color in some of the spaces I left there. What has Dave meant to you, and what has he meant to the people, not just there in the state of Florida, but across the United States of America?
Sure. Well, first, a shout out to Beverly, and a shout out to how important our spouses are. I mean, yes. We spend, as leaders, we spend an inordinate amount of time. First, we spend a lot of time at work, just doing our daily job. Then we spend more time at night and on the weekends doing this leadership thing for FAPPO, for NIGP, for the local chapters. And our spouses have to be on board with that. We have to have their support. So a shout out to Beverly, a shout out to my husband about how great both of them have been in supporting myself and Dave. Dave, and you know this, at least I think you know this, Dave worked for me at Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize Dave worked for me. I went to work in 96. Dave was there as a procurement specialist. He was working at a warehouse in our public works department. And as you said, he just sucks people in. He gets people involved. But what I've always shared, one of the things that I deeply am so grateful for was when I decided to sit for my CPPO, which was back in 96, 97, Dave helped me. Dave had started, even though it wasn't a formal question of the day, and we've all probably heard of Dave's question of the day, Dave had flashcards. So Dave would come over to my office 3 days a week at lunchtime, and we would go through Dave's flashcards to prep me for the CPPO. Now, that was when we still had to sit for an oral exam. So it wasn't just the written, but also the oral. I'm pretty good on my feet, so that side didn't really give me much anxiety. But I had not taken a written exam in probably 20 years when I last got my CPM. So the CPPO was my first big purchasing certification. And I will tell you, and I'll tell everybody that'll listen to me, I would not have my CPPO without Dave Nash and the time he spent with me. The question of the day has been a godsend for a tremendous number of people sitting for certification. When I decided to sit for the NIGP CPP, I went on Dave's question of the day, and he helped me prep. So Dave is just a giver. And I was so glad to see him recognized at NIGP this past August with the Leadership Award. It's just, he deserves all the accolades. And I love him and Beverly to death. I really do. So
as do many people. And thank you, Kirk, for those kind words about Dave, because again, Dave, such an incredible giver, contributor, a leader, and we'll talk more about leadership in a moment. But I didn't even realize that Dave was getting a leadership award from NIGP there in Louisville, and I thought, well, that's a perfect handshake for the Big Bit Theory, having the leadership award named after Dave and Beverly Nash, and just to let everyone know. As we move into season 10, we're going to call upon our listener and viewer community to actually help to identify some of the leaders out there who are doing great works for their communities, for their neighbors, for others. So a moment ago, Kirk, you mentioned FAPPO. And yes, everybody, we understand FAPPO is near and dear to your heart. Well, in May of 2024. It's hard to believe 2024 is on the horizon, but in May of 2024, FAPPO is going to be hosting their annual event. I went last year. NIGP Forum was great. Let me tell you, FAPPO 2023, phenomenal. Again, there in Orlando, easy to get to, so well put together, well attended. There was just an energy there in Orlando. So, Kirk, I'm going to give you the microphone. So to any vendors, suppliers who are watching our conversation, listening in, or on the other side, anybody at an agency, anybody there in the great state of Florida who's maybe thinking, gosh, my schedule is busy. I might have something, a conflicting appointment or something coming up, or I'm not really sure what I would get from going to FAPPO 2024. What would you say to them?
Well, FAPPO is a preview, to a large extent. FAPPO is a preview of NIGP. Mm-hmm. And I say that because many of the presentations that are done, including mine that I do and several other people, are presentations that will then be seen at Forum. So if you are, because of schedule or because of agency support, if you are not able to attend NIGP, I would encourage them to then attend FAPPO. The registration is probably less than half what NIGP is. It's, as you just said, it's easy to get to. So it's a less expensive type of endeavor, but you still get the same level of education on a smaller scale, which makes it also good because it's much easier to talk to people. It's much easier to share. It's much easier to, go down to the bar, at the end of the day and, oh, look, there's Dave Nash. I loved his presentation this afternoon. I'm going to go over and talk to him a little bit more. That's not always easy to do at NIGP because there's just so many more people. From the supplier side, same kind of thing. It's a great vendor trade show on a smaller scale, and there are less people, so a supplier can concentrate more on potential customers. Again, I think, and I'm not sure. Do you know where it's going to be in 24? What hotel?
Same as 2023. there at the Disney property.
Great convention space,
Beautiful.
great logistics. So from a supplier perspective, this is an opportunity. And again, it's less expensive for the supplier. And you can concentrate on the Florida market and really get to know what is unique to Florida. So I encourage supplier, agency person, get to FAPPO. It's a great opportunity to learn, connect, and really learn some things.
Yeah, smiles abound at the 2023 event.
I love going to FAPPO. I love going to FAPPO. I mean, I was president of FAPPO before I became president of NIGP. Love the organization and love what it tries to do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And so you just mentioned, Kirk, about your leadership position there with FAPPO and Fred Kuhn from NIGP. I'm going to make him happy right now. I'm going to mention that in February, NIGP is hosting their Leadership Summit 2024 yes. over in Houston, about 3 hours due east of our studios here in Austin, Texas. So leadership, Kirk, I gave your bio as you and I embarked on this conversation. Reminder again, you can look at Kirk's bio down below there in the description of this episode. But you mentioned the support of your husband, and we talked about Dave and Beverly and how it's really a team effort when it comes to the household. But when you were considering taking on these leadership positions, you and I both know I was involved in leadership laboratory at Clemson University and the University of South Alabama. I'm not going to age myself, but many years ago. And so leadership can be tough. It can be challenging. It can be time consuming. At times it can be lonely. So, kind of share your story on how, you decided, okay, I'm going to pursue these opportunities.
Okay. Well, first thing, I have to give a shout out to the city of Fort Lauderdale. 1996, I'm brand new. I just started working in Fort Lauderdale. We were on probation for a year, but I saw, with NIGP coming and then being part of NIGP that following year, I really got excited. So first and foremost, any leader has to have the support of their agency. And I was very fortunate to have that support. My first boss that I talked to about I want to go serve on the board of NIGP, which was the first step. He said, "Great," because his philosophy was it just brings credibility back to Fort Lauderdale. Look, our procurement guy is on the board of directors of the National Procurement Conference. I mean, it just adds that credibility. So that's first and foremost. But you may find this very hard to believe. I was not a social person. I know you laugh, but I was not. I had to really challenge myself to put myself out there to step into the leadership role, because I'm just not. I'm not gregarious as a personality. So I had to first challenge myself, and I realized that this will help me build. This will make me a better leader at work as I learn to lead people in other ways. So that's first and foremost, is the leader. Taking on that leadership really helped me develop just as an individual and made me, I think, more able to carry on conversations with people in non-work environments. And a lot of things get done outside of the office. And you've got to have that personality, if you will, to really approach people in a non-work environment and get some work done, if you will, over whether it's over coffee or over drinks or whatever, So it really helped me build as a better person and a better leader. And
I think you brought up an excellent point, Kirk, and thank you for sharing that story, how your bosses, the leadership there at your organization supported you. That's an interesting aspect of it.
And ultimately, when I became president, I mean, that's a lot of time away from work. And this was way before Zoom. We had 4 quarterly in-person meetings. And of course, we had the national conference. And the president, will usually do at least 2 international trips during their presidency. So it's a lot of time away from your primary function as a whether you're a director, manager, whatever you are, back at work, and you have to have good staff. You have to have great staff that you can trust to carry the job on while you're off gallivanting around the world. So
yeah, that's a good point. I was just going to mention that, but before you kind of read my mind there, Kirk, that the team back home has to be able to keep pulling on the rope in the right direction in your absence. So speaking of staff, speaking of team, one of the things that we've endeavored to do here during season 9, our longtime listeners and viewers understand, is we've tried to profile the story of purchasing, that person who's doing the good work. And when I travel around, I go to an event a month. It seems like I keep my bag packed. I'm going to San Diego this coming weekend. And anyway, what I hear out there is there are a lot of people retiring. There are some people leaving the profession to pursue other things. So if there's anybody watching us, Kirk, whether they're thinking about another opportunity within the organization itself, or somebody who is outside of purchasing right now, considering a career opportunity in purchasing, what would you say to those people?
It's a great opportunity to help people, to have an effect on a large group of people. Okay. I'm going to give you a little story. 2005, 2006, whatever year that we had some really bad hurricanes, and I can't, we got into the W's. The same year that the hurricane went up through the Gulf and hit New Orleans, really, really bad.
Katrina, yeah.
Katrina, thank you.
That was 05, yeah.
We got hit pretty badly in Fort Lauderdale with one storm in particular. We actually lost power in my house. We lost power for 13 days. Why I bring this up is before that hurricane had hit, they had brought in a new deputy city manager. And part of her job was overseeing procurement. So she said to me one day, she said, "Kirk, I don't know what it is you do." Now, besides, kind of like, okay, I was really set back by that. But 3 months later, after the hurricane season, I'm back in a conference meeting with her, and she goes, "Now I understand, because procurement really shines in emergencies." And we did. So she really saw how procurement not only can help the agency in an emergency, but also the entire residency. I mean, we were out there, not only did we buy the ice, we were distributing the ice. Not only did we buy the water, we were distributing the water. So if there's a part of you that wants to really, whether you call it give back to the community, or one of the ways that you are personally motivated is by helping other people, then public procurement is a great career. There's some, you have to remember your time's working in a fishbowl, because everything's open to the public, whether it's the documents or the meetings or whatever. But I mean, my whole career, I was about helping the people in my community. If you have one of my business cards, as a consultant, my tagline is helping the public sector serve the public. And that's what we do. That's what procurement does. Well, there you go. Thank you.
Have it right there. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well said, Kirk, indeed. And clearly you have a massive amount of experience compared to yours truly, the host of the Big Bid Theory. But that is one thing that I have quickly recognized, and I've been so impressed by, is all of the people out there. And it doesn't matter if it's small town USA or some of these larger cities in the US, but you see these people who are so passionate about helping their neighbors. And I was in the Air Force for 10 years, so I understand what it means to serve. And that's what people are doing, is they are serving their neighbors, serving their communities in such a meaningful and masterful way.
Absolutely. And it's a great 30 plus years, and enjoyed more than I didn't enjoy. So that's always a good thing when you can walk away and say, I had a pretty good career.
you have had a pretty good career, Kirk. I think that's fair to say. And again, congratulations on the award there in Louisville. And, congratulations on your career and the impact that you've had on so many. And we are so appreciative that you carved some time out for us, for our audience today.
Loved it. Thank you.
I will say it again. So many thanks to Kirk Buffington for sharing his invaluable insights and all that Kirk has done in his storied career, and not only helping, of course, the good folks there in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but elsewhere as well. He has touched the lives of so many people. What a leader. All right, Rick, you need to lead the way in crazy bids, my friend. You teased it earlier. Wow us with your excellence.
Alrighty, so this one will actually be pretty simple, but it is in relation to literally what you and I are doing right now, Bill. So this episode's crazy bid comes from our wonderful and loved portal of Combuys. So this comes from the city of Boston, Massachusetts, specifically from the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority. The title of this RFP is R39 Podcast Studio Build-Out. So, Bill, this might be one for the both of us to maybe take a closer look at. And there's not a ton of information here, but obviously, if you know how to build out a podcast studio, then I think your first stop is going to be getting in touch with the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority over on wonderful Summer Street in Boston, Massachusetts. But basically, what they are looking for here, the authority is looking for basically somebody to help convert a existing concession and pantry area within the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center to a podcast studio. I've never been to the exhibition center, but I have been to plenty of these sort of like city conference centers and such where, you know, if you take a little bit of a tour through, there's tons and tons of rooms that just aren't being used and have so much potential for other very neat ideas in this day and age. And I think that is exactly what the MCCA did over here, is they said, hey, here's an old little kitchen pantry sort of area, and we're getting into podcasting. So basically, you know, if you are able to kind of build out a podcast studio for the Convention Center Authority over in Boston, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to submit a proposal for. But then also with that, maybe we could take some suggestions for Studio B, as we've kind of built that up over the last several months over here. But if that is something that is within your capabilities, if you are able to build out that podcast studio for the MCCA, then that is what we are going to call this episode's crazy bid that you can win.
That was another very fine crazy bid you can win. And yeah, we are going to do a few tweaks here to the Big Bid Theory studio. More on that later. We will have a lot going on as we go on our mini sabbatical here in a few months, but we do still have a few episodes remaining here in season 9. So that's going to do it. Reminders, some administrative items. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at The Big Bid Theory. My Twitter, if you want to tweet with me, or I guess it's X now, if you want to X with me, is contract_hunter. TBBT is on Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube. Tell your friends about it. We thank you. Powered by Bid Prime and Beacon Bid. Have you thought about leading the way? Many thanks to Kirk Buffington for his opinions. Many thanks to Rick and our team for leading the way in putting together this episode. This is Bill Culhane. Until next time, go Gunners, Barracudas, Tigers, Bobcats, and Cubs, and we wish you the very best.
Powered by Bid Prime and Beacon, we thank you for tuning in to the Big Bid Theory. From Austin, Texas, the show is hosted by Bill Culhane, produced by Bill Culhane and Jim Ward, and co-hosted and engineered by Rick Jennings. Distribution, research, and production assistance by Lauren Jones. Among a variety of platforms, you can find other episodes of the show on iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, Google Play, and also YouTube. Thank you for downloading and sharing the podcast.
We're having so much fun, oh much fun, oh on